Thank you all for joining us. And I, Dr. Morrison and Justin are pleased to bring you this presentation where the focus is really going to be on staying healthy with diabetes during holidays. This is really a focus on what it is that people who have diabetes already, they know that they have diabetes. We're not going to be talking about folks who have pre-diabetes or who may develop diabetes, but this is when you know you have diabetes. What is it that will allow you to get through one of the most challenging periods of the calendar safely and as healthily as possible? So first, I want to start off by just reminding everybody what diabetes is. And I'm not going to do a deep dive on this because we just don't have time this morning with the other things that we want to cover. But it is important to remind you of what it is that's unique about diabetes that makes a presentation like what we're doing today so important for the period that we are talking about. Remember what diabetes is. It's a disease that affects the body's ability to produce or respond to insulin. And with diabetes, you have inadequate insulin action. And when you have poor insulin action, blood sugars are going to be elevated. That's the primary thing that lets you know you have diabetes. But it's not the only thing that goes wrong. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, and things like kidney disease and the predilection for heart disease are also very common. And what is important is the fact that these factors don't change during the holidays. They actually may come under increased pressure because of the way we behave during the holidays. So just go through some important issues that are affected in diabetes by the holidays. Your routines get disrupted. Meal times can change, and the usual opportunities that you might use for physical activity and movement and exercise may be reduced. Your sleep patterns can get turned around, and that's a really significant problem. You may experience, as many people do, more stressful situations during the holidays. And then medication schedules and monitoring schedules of things like your blood sugar and your blood pressure may be interrupted or thrown off schedule. Now, even though a lot of times people aren't measuring and monitoring things, the tendency is for things like your glucose, your cholesterol, your triglycerides, and your blood pressure, and all of the things that are markers of metabolic health, they go up. And just because you aren't measuring them doesn't mean that they aren't increasing and causing potential damage. Now, a lot of times we don't have sufficient planning for the changes that occur in the holidays. I don't have a way of seeing you raise your hands, but how many of you who might have diabetes or have family members or loved ones with diabetes, how many of you know of folks who actually talk with their healthcare providers about the adjustments that might be required during the holidays? Not many of us do that. So the question is it your diabetes that's on vacation, or is it just your mind and your attitude? If it's the latter, you got to be careful. And that's why we want to talk about how to have a healthy and happier holiday period with diabetes. Because this is a season for temptation. This is a season when many people with diabetes have out of control blood sugars and they invite the presence and addition of extra pounds. But really, we should view diabetes as a time to share with family and loved ones, to become more spiritually connected. These are the things that we don't talk as much about as we ought to about the holidays. You can do other things like shopping, decorating your house, wrapping gifts, exchanging gifts. But what we end up doing a fair amount of is baking and cooking and eating. And what you really have know that we've come to expect during the holidays is that, rightly or wrongly, eating becomes the main focus. It's feast time. Carbs are everywhere in the form of breads, rolls, and all of the things that you see listed here. And Dr. Morrison will talk more about these later. Everybody around you is eating, and there is a lot of peer pressure to eat. And of course, we find comfort in our favorite foods. This is especially important in people where there is diabetes. So there are some basics. You have to really monitor your carbohydrate intake. And again, Dr. Morrison will chime in much more detail on this. Maintain a consistency of your routine because it's important to keep up things like monitoring your blood sugar. The thing you're going to hear us talk about over and over again is the importance of portion control and the importance of exercise, physical activity. Those are high priorities. And we'll do a deeper dive on why we say things like, do not drink alcohol on an empty stomach. There are some severe consequences that might befall you under those circumstances. Now, I'm not going to go into this holiday nutrition review where we talk about what are carbs, where they found, and what one serving is, because Dr. Morrison really is our expert in this, and she is the one that's going to be walking you through a little bit more meaningful information on this. But I'm going to talk about some healthy holiday tips. This is the time that you need to make some time for physical activity. A number of advantages, and Justin would be the first to tell you what many of those advantages are. Relieving your stress, improving your mood, lowering your blood glucose levels, and of course, helping you with weight control. Now, these are the general sort of overview recommendations. And Justin, if you have additional things that you want to add to this, please feel free to do so. But splitting your activities into 2 or 3 intervals of 10 to 15 minutes, making physical activity a group event, a family event, to try to make sure that you are in a setting where you can be inclusive and have this as a bonding event almost. Walking around the neighborhood after dinner, using the mall not so much to shop, but as a safe place to walk. And if you're going to be driving somewhere, don't drive around the parking lot for 5 minutes trying to find a space 25 feet closer to the door. Park somewhere intentionally, a block or two away from the door so that you can use that as a time for some physical activity. Now, this is the thrust. This is where the pedal hits the metal in holidays. Making changes to lighten up your food burdens, making changes so that you can lower the carbohydrate levels in your recipes, and Dr. Morrison will amplify this. Lower the fat or change the type of fats that you have in your diet so that they're healthier for your heart and they give you fewer calories. These are essential issues. Now, how can you do that? What are some practical steps? When it's appropriate, you might say to a family dinner, you might bring your own favorite healthy dish. One, it's a nice gesture. It doesn't insult anybody. You want to make sure that it's okay with whoever is the host. It certainly will provide a way to ensure that you're going to be eating well or staying within the boundaries of what you know to be healthier eating. You might even want to host a party yourself so that you can make healthy food items. You are now more in charge of what gets fed to people and what you eat yourself. And something that we don't often take full advantage of is give some of those leftovers away. You don't have to hold on to all of them. It might not be a bad idea to have some takeaway containers on hand during a period like the holidays when you know you're going to be fixing large amounts of food, and many of those food items might not be exactly the most low calorie or in some instances not be the healthiest food items that you can eat. How do you keep track of what it is you're taking in? Because it's so easy to snack here, snack there, and sometimes we don't take those things into account. You don't, it's like invisible eating. Everything that goes into you is going to register with your body, whether it registers with your mind or not. Keep some kind of food diary. And we're talking about things that are useful to do on a day in, day out basis if you have diabetes, but this is especially important during the holiday period. You might consider carrying a small notebook or a small notepad because you can carry around easily. And this is especially important if you've been having control problems. If your blood sugars have been all over the place leading into the holidays, what do you think they're going to be like during the holidays?
Hey,
These are
Dr.
the
Gavin.
types of circumstances where having a monitoring device, you've heard us talk again and again about why it's such a game-changing situation to have access to these continuous glucose monitors. It would be extremely helpful if you knew what was happening to your body at at the time you're doing something. Moment to moment capability to see what's happening to your blood sugars is what you're able to do with a continuous glucose monitor. Now, paying attention to how full you are is one of those things that we just don't think about often enough. Don't graze. You know, you have people that just eat all day long. They're just munching and munching. People that stand up to eat. I used to watch my mother. My mother would walk around and she would have a little plate in her hand and she'd have a cup. You know, she'd be sipping out of that cup and she'd be eating out of that little plate. She called it a saucer. You know, and you know, people get into the habit of doing that. You know, eating slowly, enjoying your food, but also make some assessment of how full you are. Pay attention to your body. It takes your body hours to fully digest a meal, but it only takes your body about 20 minutes to realize that you're full. But only if you pay attention and heed that. There's a hunger scale that I'm going to show you in a minute, and it goes from 1 to 10, where 1 is where you're starving. You have headaches, dizziness, lightheaded. You got to get some calories. 10 is when you don't ever want to see food again. Okay. And where do you want to be is between a 3 and a 6. And if you only eat up to a 5, it might be helpful to you. Okay. Now, that hunger scale helps you when you're bored. It helps you when you're in a different emotional state, when you're multitasking, or if you're just eating because you want to see what something tastes like or food is available. And remember during the holidays, it's going to be all around. Cravings, we get them. Sometimes you just want something. You know, Dr. Reynolds, he got these cravings for things like pickles, but that's a different story. But, cravings
Careful,
generally
careful, careful.
only lasts about 20 minutes. If your craving takes you beyond 20 minutes, then just go ahead and have some of it, rather than introducing stress. But use common sense. Do it in small portions. Don't get stressed over food because if you answer that craving, it'll keep you from overindulging later on. Now, what can you do to avoid emotional eating? Well, call somebody, you know, call a friend or somebody that you like. Work on a do it yourself project or something that distracts you, a warm bath, watch a movie, something that makes you happy. Recognize what it is about you, what kinds of circumstances will trigger emotional eating, will cause you to just start looking for something to snack on, and then have a plan ready to deal with that. Very important during the holidays. When you're bored, when you're not doing anything, and please be careful when you're doing things like watching movies or when you have all these leftovers around, when you have all these snack items around, this is when you can get into trouble. But remember, the counterpart of that is that holidays are a good time to get things done. It's a good time to do things like clean out those closets, those garages, visit friends or relatives, make crafts, make repairs that you've been putting off, do volunteer activities, you know, make it Christmas items, plan a bit. There's a bunch of things that you can do. But instead of having a sit down function where you are not engaged in physical activity, you might do something like teaching lion dances. But do these things in moderation. Just do it. I put an asterisk here because I saw something the other day that was really amazing. There's a group of folks called themselves the Dancing Grannies, and they were doing that line dance, boots on the ground, where the fans at. I
Very
mean,
tough.
and they were working it. But not only that, they were working every other line dance. And you should have seen, these were people that, in order to be part of this group, you had to be over 65 years old. And I
OG.
would say, look them up on YouTube, and they'll tell you some things that you can do during the holidays. This is their hunger scale. Goes from 1 to 10. Where you want to be is in that range where it's in black, from fairly hungry to full. Neutral is a good place to be. Most of us during the holidays don't stop at neutral. We're like this cat down in the right side of this picture. We eat till we, pass out. We can't move. We have to go to sleep. Okay. And then there's planning ahead. Don't go to a party or a get together hungry. That's a bad situation. If it's a dinner party, make sure you have some breakfast. Eat something for lunch, and then eat a small snack beforehand to prevent yourself from overindulging at dinner. You might even give yourself an extra carb serving at dinner to enjoy, but make sure you practice portion size control, and you'll be hearing more about that later. Develop some strategies that can take some of the stress and the pressure off during the eating that you're doing in the holiday period. But I want to add this caution. What we are not doing is we're not putting in place a thou shalt not mindset. We are not telling you not to eat. We're not telling you not to enjoy holiday food. But we're really talking about a get low and go slow approach. Okay? This is not a situation where you have to sacrifice eating certain foods or things that you enjoy. It's a matter of doing it in a way that is healthier for you and more balanced. One of those approaches is the way you organize your portions. Now, Dr. Morrison is much more astute in talking about this, but generally, eating smaller portions of different things to get a variety of nutrients is important, but you have to keep track of it. And there are different methods that you can use. What's summarized here is the plate method. Notice that half of the plate here is vegetables. A quarter of the plate is meat and proteins, and then a quarter is where you have the carbs. Okay. Now, if you need some pointers to help you with portion sizes, and again, I will refer to Dr. Morrison, who will talk about this more in detail. There are all kinds of things that you can use. I'm going to leave it to her. She has some really excellent tips about how you tell how much of something you're putting into you. I want to point out one thing, and that's this meat part here. 3 ounces of meat is about the size of a deck of cards. If you've ever played bid whist or spades or hearts or something, you know a deck of cards. But think about this. 3 decks of cards worth of meat is over a half a pound. Okay, just think about that. If you look at what you got, if you get one of these, what I call Jurassic chicken legs, one of these chickens that look like it come from the dinosaur age, what you have in that one thigh and leg, uh, more than 3 decks of cards worth of meat. That's more than a half a pound of meat. That's for most of us. If you're not like Justin with all those muscles, you that's too much meat for what you need. Okay, keep yourself busy. We talked about that. Involve yourself with meaningful volunteer activity. Plan a game night or go back again to that line dancing thing. I think all of those things are underutilized resources that can be healthier for us if we use them often enough, regularly enough, and they can also facilitate bonding and relationships. Okay. Now, this is a particularly important little feature that I want to introduce here. Everybody understands how hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, becomes a higher risk during the holidays because this is what ends up in the emergency room. People come with DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis. People come with hyperosmolar coma with blood sugars in the 500s and 600s. Everybody knows that this is a time when hyperglycemia is really a high risk situation. Less commonly, We have hypo, low blood sugar, but that's also a situation of risk. Hypoglycemia is in many ways the more dangerous of the two circumstances, because this is when your blood sugar becomes sufficiently low. Glucose is the only thing that your brain can really use effectively as energy. When you don't have glucose, when your blood sugar falls below a certain level, your neurons, your nerve cells, your brain cells die. Okay? And if you have known cardiovascular disease and you have low enough blood sugar, your heart can't get the energy that it needs. You can precipitate a heart attack. Okay. So hypoglycemia is a dangerous situation. Alcohol plays a more dominant role in hypoglycemia in diabetes during periods like the holidays where alcohol consumption may rise. Now, I know that may not apply to some of you, but for your family members and your friends where it might apply, please be mindful of this. You have to be smart with alcohol. And remember that you're talking about whether you're talking about spirits, whether it's vodka, gin, scotch, or whatever, wine or beer. You know, if you're going to mix your spirits with mixers, use diet mixers, but don't use things that are heavy in sugar like Kahlua, Bailey's, cider. Avoid those themed drinks. People have these, themed drinks. Yeah, they have things like holiday drinks that sometimes you don't even know the names of them. They're pretty, but you don't know what's in them. A lot of times there's a lot of sugar in them, but there are some things that you do know that still have a lot of sugar. Margaritas. Okay? There are a lot of drinks like that that you have to really be careful about, and make sure you're drinking these things with food, with a meal, because your blood sugar is at a risk of dropping. Okay. And I know you don't want me to get too professorial on you, but I have to really sort of walk you through some of this stuff because I want you to know a little bit about what we're talking about. Alcohol can actually reduce the ability of your liver to make glucose. When you go to bed at night, you're not eating, but your liver makes glucose to make sure your brain keeps supplied. Okay, that's called that's fasting blood glucose. That's coming from your liver. Alcohol can keep your liver from being able to do that. Alcohol can increase insulin secretion in people who are on certain types of medication. So it can cause the release of more insulin where you can still make insulin. And many people with type 2 can. Your blood sugar is likely to fall. But alcohol can also slow down the absorption of glucose from your gut. You may have glucose around, but with alcohol, you may not get the absorption of that glucose into your system. It further lowers the glucose that's in your bloodstream. It can interfere with medications if you're on sulfonylurea or if you're on exogenous or outside insulin. Alcohol related low blood sugar or hypoglycemia is especially risky if you take it on an empty stomach. And if you have a person who has a history of alcohol abuse, they are at higher risk for hypoglycemia. So awareness of the hypoglycemia risk and preparation for treatment of that low blood sugar, if you see it, those are things that are usually uh, uh, we're not aware of it, so we're not mindful of the fact that we might need to treat it, because this is not the kind that will end up in the emergency room. A lot of times you have to treat this one at home, okay? And when you do, there's a rule for that. Hypoglycemia, you have to treat it with what we call the 15-15 rule. You give them 15 grams of carbohydrate, and that's usually in the form of some, because these are people that are still conscious. Their blood sugars are just low. You have to give them either hard candy, but they have to be able to swallow, glucose gel, 2 tablespoonfuls of raisin, or 4 ounces of real soda, not diet soda, 4 ounces, half a cup of regular juice, a tablespoonful of sugar or honey, or 8 ounces of skim milk. Wait 15 minutes after you do that, and then if they're not alert and conscious, do it again. If you can measure their blood sugar, which it is important that you do it, measure their blood sugar. If the blood sugar is below 70 and they don't respond to this 15-15 rule here, you may need to, that's when you may need to call 911. Okay. Now, water. Drink plenty of water during the holidays, especially. It doesn't have calories. It hydrates you. You can flush out that excess sugar in your body. It fills you up. It dampens your hunger. And sometimes it's when you're thirsty that you feel like you're hungry. So try water first if you're feeling hungry. Okay. And then monitoring. Always remember, bring your medicine. Take your glucose monitors wherever you go. Check your blood sugars regularly. Take your medicine or your insulin when you're supposed to in order to avoid dangerous situations. And sometimes you may need to adjust your medications, okay? Especially people who are on insulin, but you can only adjust if you know what your blood sugar is at the time, okay? And only if you've had a chance to talk with your provider to know what adjustments make sense for you under certain circumstances. But I want to ask you a question. How likely are you to prick your finger to check your blood sugar with one of these monitors when you're at a family gathering or a social gathering, a party? There are times when you may need to or want to know the effects of something that you ate or drank. Well, what could be helpful to you if you want to know what your blood sugar is? Well, this is why we go back to the discussion about why these continuous glucose monitors have really changed the game. Okay. Finger sticks and glucose meters, they've been increasingly displaced by the use of these CGM devices. You wear them on your skin, on the back of your arm. They give you minute to minute measurements of your blood sugar, and you get you actually can see it on your reader or on your phone, and you know whether you're going low, you're going high, you're staying where you're supposed to stay. Okay. And this is basically what I call a GPS of the diabetes journey, because it actually helps you get to where you want to go in terms of control. Okay. And it generates these printouts that's called ambulatory glucose profiles, AGPs. And what are they helpful for? They tell you where the problem is, because these are things that this graph prints out what your blood sugar is at each hour of the day on a minute to minute basis. So basically, when you get a day's worth, 2 days worth, a week's worth, 10 days, 2 weeks worth of this data, you can see what time of day, which day your blood sugar was low, when was it high, when was it in what we call in range. Very, very important. No more time no time is it more important than during the holidays. And then the final thing that I would address with you are eating myths. There are some myths and fables that have to do with holiday eating. One of them, that you can count on adding 5 to 7 pounds between Thanksgiving to New Year's. Myth. The truth is that the average weight gain is less than a pound during that period of time. So don't set yourself up and let yourself think that, well, I'm going to definitely be adding some pounds during the holiday period. No, you don't have to. Just because everybody does, that's a myth. You don't have to do that at all. People with diabetes simply cannot take, shouldn't eat certain foods. Myth. Even with diabetes, you don't have to avoid any of the foods in your diet. You can eat stuffing. We call it, some folk call it stuff. We call it dressing. Cranberries, dessert, you can eat those things. But what's the key? The key is portion size. Controlling portion size and limiting those high calorie, high fat, high carbohydrate containing foods, and balancing the food groups in a healthy way. And what? Monitoring what effects they're having on your blood sugar. Absolutely important. You can save up for dinner and eat as much as you want then. Myth. The truth is, when you have diabetes, you got to be consistent. You got to balance your intake. You have to eat a consistent amount of carbs to control your blood sugar. You don't want to skip meals, waiting and waiting and waiting, because actually, when you go into starvation mode, It's not good for you. When your body goes into a fasting mode, that's when you're skipping meals, especially if you're going to be skipping meals and then having a little, little toddy here and there. That's not good for you at all. In fact, it could be dangerous. Okay. So it's a myth. Don't save up for dinner and then, pig out. That's not a good strategy. Consistency and portion.
Gavin,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Gavin, what is a toddy?
A toddy is that 1 ounce of single malt that you get out of the closet that you keep so carefully guarded. But other people use Jack Daniels but a
Okay.
toddy, that's what I'm talking.
All
All
right.
right. I'm not going to go into this a lot because I was just going to use holiday cooking tips that you could use, as perhaps maybe a substitute for sugar. Dr. Morrison might, have something to say about this, but I was using Splenda, and the reason that I was going to use the Splenda model is because Splenda has a website, and on that website they give you hints and clues about what you can use that's healthier than the stuff we normally use. And it doesn't only talk about sugar, it talks about things like, different fats and oils and so forth on that website. And what we're really trying to do overall, we're trying to overcome the barriers that interfere with staying healthy during holidays when you have diabetes. But don't try to change everything at once. Get support. We consider that support is something that you're doing right now by participating in a session like this. Okay. If you slip, get back on track. Don't give up. There are benefits of changing your behavior. What we're talking about doing in the holidays, we want you to carry it forward. It's something that you should be doing on a regular basis. The challenge is that it's more urgent to do it during the holidays because this is when you're under more pressure to do what we consider unhealthy things. Okay? There should be a goal. You should remind yourself of why you want to change your behavior when you have diabetes. One goal might be I want to be able to have enough energy and be in good enough health to take my grandchildren to the park. Okay? I mean, that's just one of the things that could be a driver. Know what to expect around this time of year by participating in sessions like this, by talking to your healthcare provider. Remember those basics. This is not a time when we can resort to denial, but we have to change some things. We have to follow some healthy holiday eating tips. Don't listen to the myths. Observe and respect your treatment and your monitoring routines. Don't get off of your routines that are managing your condition just because it's the holidays. Overcome the barriers. And it's okay to try and fail. You just try again. Okay? Diabetes doesn't take a vacation, even during the holidays. Your mind might take a vacation. But your body, if it has diabetes, I'm sorry, it's not. So with that, I'm going to turn it over first to Dr. Demetrice Morrison, and then we have Justin, who can tell you a little bit more about how do you operationalize, things like physical activity during holidays. What tips are important for you?
Dr. Demetrice Morrison, DCN, MPH, MHSA, RDN, LDN. So, Dr. Morrison, it's all yours. So let me check if I can get to your slides now.
Thank you again for this opportunity. We wanted to just piggyback on both what Dr. Reynolds and Dr. Gavin spoke on and how important it is to be consistent. We did have a wonderful event in West Palm Beach. We wanted to put some hands-on in addition to what we speak about. And the community was very encouraged. They saw for their own selves, they tasted for their own selves. You can have a wonderful experience with eating without without the punishment of like the lack of knowledge. So what we try to do is try to drive home everything that we've been talking about up to this point, and we try to make it into a real experience on our event that we had last week. So thank you again. I wanted to start by speaking on the holiday food exchanges. We spoke a lot about maintaining our blood glucose control, and that is stemming from the food groups. Normally, we don't do fruit salads, but when we do, like we did with the cooking demonstration, the serving size is half a cup. Half a cup is 4 ounces. That's a serving of fruit. So when you go to the store and you see the grapefruit big as your fist, that's probably 2 fruits. If you see the banana long as your arm, that's probably 3 fruits. The serving size is half a cup. So if it's a banana, chop it up and see if it fits in with that half a cup. If it's a plum or a nectarine or an orange and it's huge, cut it in half. Those are the food exchanges that you need to know, because when we talk about counting your carbohydrate, one carbohydrate of fruit is going to be a half a cup. That's going to be always the answer, half a cup. So if your strawberries are huge and they exceed half a cup, then you need to take some strawberries out of that serving and make it fit within half a cup. Jello, sugar-free Jello, again, half a cup. Cranberries, 2 tablespoons. So when we talk about cranberry sauce, again, it's made from cranberries, but we're not going to slice the cranberry sauce in these huge slices. We're going to slice it very thin. It is a fruit. Fruit breaks down into sugar in the blood. It is a carbohydrate. So we want to be mindful of the holiday exchanges. Next slide, please. The candy starch vegetables, candied, which is sweet potato. We put our brown sugar. Some people put white sugar. Candied yams. Some people sweeten their squashes. Again, what is the serving size? Half a cup. But what is a yield? Two, equivalent to 2 starches and 1 fat. So if you put the candy yams on your plate in these huge serving spoons, greater than half a cup, then it's not 2 starches, it's 4 starches, and it's 2 servings of fat. Okay. Non-starchy vegetables like carrots, green beans, and casseroles. Again, the baseline serving size is half a cup. So have your measuring cup available. If you do want to do that green bean casserole and you serve a cup of it to yourself, it's 2 starches. So starches, like we consume mashed potatoes, scalloped potatoes. Again, when we take the actual starch of a potato, again, the serving size is half a cup, but we're just not making it without the butter. So we got to keep that in mind. So we include that fat as well. So half a cup is 1 starch. So if you serve a cup of serving of mashed potato on your plate, it's 2 starches. If you serve 2 cups of mashed potatoes, it's 4 starches. And you got to be mindful, all that has to break down to sugar in the blood, especially if you're sitting after a huge meal and you don't walk. Where's this sugar going to go? It's just going to sit there, you're going to pee it out. Okay. So be mindful of the starches. That's why I'm spending a little bit more time with the traditional starches. Macaroni and cheese. Again, the pasta is half a cup. We do not serve. Yes, I'm a real person, Jerry. We do not serve macaroni and cheese and half a cup servings. I've seen the portions. So we have the fat of the cheese, we have the fat of the whole milk, we have the refined starches, which is a white pasta, and like I said, we're not serving half a cup of macaroni and cheese. Our plates are 1 cup, 2 cups, even 3 cups, and then we have the audacity to go back to a second and third helping. So we're loading on. I don't want to say 1 starch. We're loading on 6, 7 starches in one food item, and that's with macaroni and cheese alone. We don't include the candy yams. That's another 4 or 5 starches. So your poor body is already starch overloaded, and you haven't even eaten the plate. Just visually seeing the plate, how you're serving yourself is visually overwhelming. I can imagine once you eat that meal and you don't walk or burn out those carbs, and then you say, "Oh my God, that food was so good. I gotta get another plate." Keep in mind, your stomach is the size of your fist. Ball up your fist and look at your fist. Ball up your fist and look at your fist. Your stomach is the size of your fist. You can easily stretch your stomach during holidays. Not a problem. Easily. The vegetables with butter and cheese, again, broccoli, your cabbage, your cauliflowers, again, half a cup. That's one veggie, one fat. Because we cook with fat, we know that. But we want to be mindful with the vegetables to use the healthy fat, olive oil, avocado oil, flaxseed oil. Those are the healthy fats. But be mindful to don't be heavy-handed. When we're with family that are used to cooking, they're not on our webinars, they're going to season the food with two things that are heavy, fat and salt. So the food is going to be tasty. Definitely, you're going to love it, but then you're going to pay a price later. And that's what we're here to teach. We don't want you to pay the consequence later because it's a double duty back to back, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, it's a triple threat. So by the time February come, I mean, we we really can't undo all of what you've done in three big major holidays. Next slide, please.
Yes, Dr. Morrison, you said something that was so interesting to me when we did the demonstration of cooking the foods. You had mentioned about salt. Could you please discuss
Yes.
that? Because that's very important for people to know what's in that salt.
So the picture that Dr. Reynolds placed, I was in the middle of doing a teaching with the Himalayan salt, and I was explaining that the Morton salt has aluminum particles in it to make the salt come out of the container smoothly. And then I said those aluminum particles cut our vessels and it damages our arteries that we don't normally emphasize to promote or encourage you to use Morton's iodized salt. We do encourage you to use Himalayan salt, kosher salt, or Celtic salt because those salts have minerals. So iodized salt that we typically grew up on don't have the minerals. Plus, again, the iodine is mixed within other particles that will often hurt us in the end. And because we love Morton's, they push it on us. I mean, we use it on everything, literally on the meat, on the starch, on the veggies. We put so much salt, even though the recommendations for Americans to get about 2,000 milligrams during the holidays, we're eating 3-4 times that milligrams of salt during the holidays, and it's the salt that hurts us. So when we talk about salt selection, we always suggest a Himalayan salt. Some of the Himalayan salts have a bigger crystal, some have a finer crystal, but it's a light spread on your food. It's not for you to douse the whole food item with it. That was for your thyme, your scallion, your onions, your garlic. You could do that with that your food item. The adobo, the goya, the bouillon cube, all those have secret iodized salt in it. So iodized salt's not just in Morton's, it's in the complete seasoning, it's in the adobo, it's in the bouillon cubes that we want to give our food quote unquote some color. So we didn't just use iodized salt, we also use complete seasoning, which is iodized salt again. Then we use accent, which is iodized salt again, and then we use bouillon to give the food color. So we use salt 4 times. And we didn't lightly do it. We were heavy-handed. So in that one food item, and you went back for 2 more plates, I mean, that could do so much damage to our bodies. Did I answer your question, Dr.
Yeah, yeah,
Reynolds?
yeah. And again, I like that comment about the sauce because we all eat a ton of salt, right? That's one of our major problems. And imagine, as the ER doc and as a doc in general, learning some science here, when you start cutting those the little small cuts inside those little arteries, guess what builds up there? Plaques, plaques. Sometimes we get the platelets come to the area, as if though we were going to give you ischemic bowel or wherever that little vessel is. It's going to cut that off. Imagine if it's going to your retina. You're diabetic, going to your retina and stuff. So that salt thing, and I wanted her, I'm glad she expressed it, to explain the way in which she did. Extremely important, guys. That's salt, that's salt, that's salt. I'm done, Doc. Go ahead. Appreciate you.
Next slide. Okay, here we go. All right. So the fruit pies. So we know no one's cutting their pies in a 1/6 of a pie. This food group is generous to tell you you're gonna get the fruit, obviously, if it's an apple pie. But in the instance, we do pumpkin, but we also do sweet potato. And we know sweet potato is a healthy complex carb. We know that. However, we also know that the crust is made with white flour. It's made with some type of hydrogenated oil. That's what makes it flaky. Which hydrogenated oil is a saturated fat. It's not a good oil. And then now the filling, we take that starch, and then we add white sugar. Some add brown sugar. Some add condensed milk. And then we add that sugar content and that carbohydrate a lot higher. So that means the serving has to be a lot smaller. And with things that taste sweeter, we don't eat 1/6 slice of a pie. That's the concern. So be mindful, a pie, again, pumpkin, custard, pecan, uh, sweet potato, all of these are desserts. We always caution the sweets because you just had mac and cheese on the plate and you had stuffing and you turned around and had cornbread. So now you're going to have pie too. So, all this breaks down into sugar. It's really carb heavy. It's no balance. And we really need to be mindful of that. When we look at sweetened milk or condensed milk, that makes the ice creams and stuff that we use, again, that yields one milk, and milk, of course, is carbohydrate. Fruit is carbohydrate. Starch is carbohydrate. So, for example, for the first one, fruit pie, 1/6 of a slice, one starch has 15 grams. One fruit is another 15 grams. So 1/6 of a slice, you're already at 30 grams of a pie. And if you're at 1/12 or something greater or triple, then you're not at 30. You're double the numbers. You're at 60. You're at 90 grams of carbs for that one serving, because your serving was extra huge. And if you like it, you're not gonna get a pecan pie. We know they use some type of corn syrup on top of the custard that they use, which is more sugar. So they're saying here, hey, this is gonna yield four carbohydrates. Four carbohydrates. And one carbohydrate is equivalent to 15 grams. So that's 60. That's 60 grams. That's 60. So you didn't eat 1/8, you doubled that. So now that's 8 carbs in a piece of pie.
I'm
And you went
feeling
back
very guilty.
twice.
I'm feeling very guilty. My goodness. And Dr. Gavin, he said the most we're going to gain is 1 pound.
No,
I
I
recorded
disagree. It's gonna
the
be more
1
than
pound,
1.
Doctor.
That's why portion size control is so important.
It's
We
very
could be
important.
cutting our
Agreed.
pies into 8 slices
Agreed.
during the
Agreed. Agreed.
holidays.
Like the pizza, we have to do that with the pies and also with the cakes too, because we know the cakes is made. Some cake flour is more refined than others. Then we add the milk, that's a carb. Then we add the oil. The oil does not ask for olive oil. It asks for some type of saturated oil. And then we put a little icing or whatever on it, and then it's telling us a small piece. It doesn't say which is a small piece, but our small is not their small. And it doesn't tell you to go back. So it's like a taste, and we don't do a taste. So you have to decide, I would say, when you plate your food and you know you're going to get sweets, on your plate, it has to be -2 carbs. If you're going to get sweets, then don't put the cornbread, the stuffing, and the mac and cheese. You got to choose one carb you like on that plate. And after about 3 or 4 hours, let that digest. You take a walk, and then you get your small piece. Like, you got to put in some helpful measures. Like, if you really can't deny going to the dessert table, then you already know I'm not going to get 3 servings. I'm not going to get 3 choices of carbs and three times the serving size of each carb. Then you got to go running like for a good minute, and you can't have no sweets. You got to push those carbs out your system. Next slide, please.
Dr. Morrison, real quickly, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
You've got a question about sea salt, and
Yes.
I am usually we try to sound smarter than we are. I'm going to sound dumber than I am, but I do not know the answer. For me, when you say 8 grams, I'm a lay person in this. 8 is a low number. What ought to be my target? Help us
No,
with
I
that.
said 80 grams. So
Oh,
we
80,
got a
80.
slide.
Okay,
Yeah,
80.
yeah, we got a slide. We got a slide that breaks the calories down from 1,200. I think it goes to 2,000. But for the most part, when Dr. Gavin was talking about portion sizes, I have a slide on that too. But I'm gonna tell you, what we supposed to eat and what we eat is two different conversations. And a lot of people will just not follow what we're supposed to eat because it's just too small. We just don't eat that small. And the stuff we're supposed to magnify, we don't want to do that either. We kind of got to get over the stubbornness of changing our eating habits. No, we're not quote unquote eating like the white folks, but they've kind of been down this road 30 years ago. We got our time now, and we're dealing with our learning curve. We're dealing with, hey, this is what Our culture has told us we do it, but if I go to Aunt Nanny's house and she says, come on in the kitchen, and she has just like that movie, Antoine Fisher, that whole table full of food, then right off the top, you already eyeing how you gonna make up your plate. Like the control is still with you. You still have to choose how you're gonna make up your plate. And you still have a choice after you eat to leave the table and take a walk. But what we have not done is exercise discipline in our portions and get up and move. What we do is we eat what we want, we sit, we unbuckle the belt around our waist and unzip the pants and the button around our waist and hit it again. So I'm gonna in a few slides go over the carbs. It's nothing too difficult, but we do outside of the information just need to change our practices. Cause the
Get
food
that
we cook the amount of food we cook can literally last about 2 weeks. But because it's
get,
there,
get,
we're literally going to try to eat it all in one day. We really are.
give us a quick answer on the sea salt, Dr. Morrison.
So the question
Is sea salt good when you talked about iodine versus salt with minerals? There was a question in the text. Is sea salt a good salt, so to speak?
so sea salt is good. I like Celtic salt. Celtic salt or Celtic salt has about 92 minerals, 93, 92, 93. It's like, like that seaweed, sea moss. Dr. CB said it. We are electric people. Our body needs minerals to energize our cycles, TCA cycles, energy cycles. So, the sea salt is good. I'm sorry I didn't mention it. Sea salt is good. I don't say use much of it because you may have a palate that you don't need much, just something to season the food with. If you're a person that don't really take in salt, when you go out to eat in these restaurants, you'll pick up the salt right away because that's all they use. So in all fairness, if you're going to do clean eating at home, be mindful the restaurants are not held to the same creed. They're going to purchase what's convenient, and most of the frozen foods are preserved with iodine, with more and so talk about more and salt to preserve the food when it's in the freezer. So just be mindful. We don't want to undo your great habits at home, but when you dine out, again, those breaded meats and those quick foods are preserved with a refined salt. Just want to let you know, you don't want to kind of defeat the purpose of eating clean at home when you dine out on, whatever, happy hour or whatever, and you're consuming these appetizers or light bites. All that stuff is preserved with the iodized salt that you're trying to get away from. So these are the complex carbs. These are the simple carbs. There are other simple carbs that we drink. If be mindful of liquid carbs, you can also drink in liquid carbs. So we want you to lean more, and dark green leafy is not there, but we want you to lean more on the whole grains. We want you to lean more on the complex carbs with the skin. I would prefer you not to take the skin off. When we did the food demonstration, I did not take the skin off the potatoes. I did not. I did not take the skin off the cucumbers. Please, please, please. That is where the nutrients are. That is where the fiber is. Please, please keep the skin on, please, and consume it. Next slide, please. So sweetbreads, and again, the banana bread, the pumpkin bread, 1/2 in a slice. That's 2 starches and 2 fats. Our beverages, eggnog, hot chocolate, 6 ounces is 1 carb and 1 milk. Your punches, and our punch is not the punch that they're talking about on this slide. I've seen punches made with 7-Up, ginger ale, 2 types of pineapple, and another type of juice. It's all in one container. That is a lot of concentrated carbs, and that's all going in your body. So your holiday beverage that's not milk or containing milk is not 1 carb. So if you use 7-Up and Sprite and they tell you how many carbs per serving and juice and another juice, and you pour yourself a 16-ounce cup of that beverage, that's not 1 carb. That's more like 8 or 7. That's a lot of liquid sugar. Be mindful. Again, the candies, 1 serving, 2 servings, the max is not for you to kind of cookies and, brownies. Again, that's all quick sugar. It's going to break down quick and it can spike you and drop you. So, again, those are not the foods we need to fuel us. Okay. Next slide, please. So this is what I was talking about with the carbohydrate. 1 slice of bread is 15 carbs. 1 small fruit is 15 carbs. One 8-ounce cup of milk is 12 carbs. If you look at the meats and you see the lines there, meat does not contain carb. That's why when we're saying plate your food, you get a lean meat and you get 2 cups of vegetables. You're already playing it safe. You see here with the lean meat, there's 7 grams of protein for 1 ounce. So the 3 ounces is your hand with no fingers. It is a deck of cards, but it also is a hand with no fingers. That is also 3 ounces. Most of the meat does have antibiotics. They are injected with antibiotics. So you get a piece of meat and hold it to your hand, and it's probably going to extend to the mid of your arm. Again, reduce it back to 3 ounces. More importantly, just get an organic piece of meat. That's not going to break down to sugar in your body at all. It has no carbs. Your non-starchy vegetables like your Brussels sprouts, your cabbage, your collard greens is only 5 grams of carbs. So that's what we want you to double and triple up on. Not the corn, not the mashed potatoes. Those are true carbohydrates. You're going to get a serving or 2, which is about 30 grams. You're not going to get 4 servings of carbs on your plate. We don't go that far. Each meal you may get 2 to 3 servings, and then you burn that off through walking after you eat. You're not going to get like your TV dinners. You turn on the back of your TV dinners and your total carb is like excessive numbers, 75 grams of carbs, 90 grams of carbs. Hungry man, 100 grams of carbs. We don't encourage that at all. That's not healthy. The food is processed. It has refined starches, refined sugars, unhealthy fats. Even though it's quick, it has portion control. You don't have to cook it. You pay for it later. I would prefer you throw a piece of salmon in the oven with the baked potato, with the skin, and the Brussels sprout all in the oven, and you're fine. In an hour, your dinner's done. And I prefer you to do 2 cups of Brussels sprouts and a very small baked potato, and you're fine. So this is when we talk about carbohydrates, 1 slice of bread is a serving. So if you go to Publix and get a sub, that's not a serving. That's like 5 servings. Because the bread is doughy, and you don't even pull out the dough out the middle of the sub. It's very full of flour. Alcoholic exchange. Yes. So what Dr. Gavin was saying about alcohol, and he made it very clear, the portion size, indicating eat it with food. These are equivalents to the carbs. So some people do drink alcohol with their meals. Okay, no problem. But we also have given you, if you get 12 ounces of beer, just so you know, that's 13 grams of carbs. That's equivalent to 1 bread and 2 fats. Okay, because we know beer is fermented carbs. If you're going to do wine, 4 ounces. And we know the wine glasses are super huge. Some people do 8 ounces. Okay, no problem. Just know if it's 4 ounces, 2 fats. But if it's an 8-ounce glass, it's 4 fats. So you could drink your fats too. Yes, wine is good for your heart, but it also has other equivalents as far as exchange for diabetes. Okay, again, we talk about digestion. Dr. Gavin spoke about that. Every 4 to 5 hours. Okay, he said it, and it's right here. It's right here. Avoid skipping meals. Okay, and he spoke about the fasting. Just a side caveat: you want to stop eating at night 3 hours before going to bed. We don't want no other organs working while you're sleeping. Okay, 3 to 4 hours. And also we want you to know, wait about 4 to 5 hours before eating again. That's another issue that we have. We eat the food at 1 o'clock and we're back at it in the pot at 3. No. Give your body time to break down the food. So 4 to 5 hours and nothing heavy. You don't do a double. You don't eat heavy at 1 and then at 3 eat heavy again. That's a lot of work on the organs. Okay, space out your carbohydrates, all right, throughout the day. And then the next slide, tip number 2, like Dr. Gavin said, don't go nowhere hungry. That's old school. I'm gonna repeat it again, eat every 4 to 5 hours, even holiday times. And then the next slide, Dr. Reynolds, I just wanted to show them here with the sweet potato. You had the healthy fats of the avocado, you have the mushroom, you have the spinach. This is something you can do while you're consuming the sweet potato. And it's not a full one, it's a half. The next slide, Dr. Reynolds, is the salmon with Brussels sprouts. The Brussels sprouts is taking half of the plate, okay? The salmon is a lean piece of meat, great source of omega fatty acids. The portion size of the potatoes with the skin and also the veggies are there. The meat is lean, it's portioned out. And then the final slide, again, is a salad. It's all right, you can have a salad with the protein. It's okay. The final slide here, again, diabetes is manageable, okay? And keep in mind, you have to adjust your portions. And that's how I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Gavin, Justin?
Yeah, it's Justin really who provides the expertise that we need to really address what it is that people need to be thinking about in terms of levels of activity, and what are the approaches that can be used, especially during a challenging period like the holidays. And there was even a question in the chat box here about how many steps do you need to to have in per day during the maybe during a period like the holidays. So Justin is really the person who can chat about that.
Yeah, so normally with hi everybody. Normally with steps, I like anything between like 10,000 steps, maybe even 11,000 to like 12. It honestly depends on the person and how long and what their general health is like. My dad would always say go consult your doctor first before you do any kinds of physical activity, just so you can be cleared first. So I would do that, obviously. Going back on a few things that you guys are talking about, I was listening in majority of the time. I think one of the things that wasn't really spoken about that much, that's also kind of like, it kind of got glossed over a little bit, is gut health. For me personally, I started doing this recently, probably within like a few months. And it's just for my own just for my own self. And I wanted to kind of switch up my diet a little bit, not really just make it cleaner. People that know me know that I don't really have like a real clean diet, even though, I work out a lot, so on and so forth. But I have been doing a lot more things. And CMOS was something that came up. And I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but this is probably one of the best CMOSs. So CMOS is interesting because most people will go ahead and just buy CMOS that they see at Publix. And normally it might be fairly cheap. These are not the things that you want to put in your body. If you're going to get CMOS, you really want the real stuff. It's pretty expensive. But the amount of stuff that it does for you is tremendous, especially for your gut. Other things that I've done too is something like this, which is a probiotic. This is this is as organic as it gets. This is a prebiotic. Now, what I normally do for myself is in the morning, wake up every morning. I go ahead and first start off with, you see there's a lime in there with water. There was water. What I normally do is I'll go ahead and do a full glass of water, pour this, about 2 scoops of the prebiotic into it, shake it up, stir it up, drink it, take these pills behind it. And basically what that's doing is, basically some people be, what's a prebiotic? Well, they're non-digestible fibers that feed like beneficial gut bacteria, right? While probiotics, which is this, are like live microorganisms like bacteria and yeast that add like population of microbes into your gut. So it's like together they promote like this healthy gut microbiome, which basically just improves your digestive system, boosts your immunity, and supports overall health, including stuff like diabetes. If you can't get your hands onto probiotics or even prebiotics, you can still find them in like certain foods. So like garlic, onions, bananas, oats, apples. The only thing about bananas though is you kind of want to watch with bananas a little bit, mainly because it's a lot of sugar in bananas. So if you really want to get a lot of this, I would probably just go straight for the actual source itself, as far as the pills that they have that you can go ahead and go get. It helps with bowel movements, people who have digestive problems, people who are constipated. I was constipated for a while. This helps a lot. Those kinds of things. And to be honest, these are things that I would probably suggest to have in your system before Thanksgiving and even after Thanksgiving. It'll help regulate a lot of things that is going on in your stomach so that you can digest well. One of the issues that people have when they're eating turkey or whatever is, especially during the holidays, is they eat so much and they get full, right? And then your normal thing that happens, because I think there's a thing called thiamine or whatever it's called that's in turkey, but it makes you sleepy, right? Most people in here that's had Thanksgiving, they get the itis, right? They just get real tired and just go to sleep.
Justin, it's tryptophan, not thiamine.
Tryptophan. Yeah, it's tryptophan.
There it is. I knew it was something with a T, but one of those things is that it naturally makes you go to sleep and you knock out, and next thing you know, all that stuff is just flowing in, and when you probably should have got up and started walking a little bit. And then it's kind of hard for you to use the bathroom. You kind of get a little constipated. Things are like, bubbly in there and stuff. So you really do want to, get your steps in. Sure, that'll go ahead and help the process for sure when it comes down to going to the bathroom. Then also B, take as much things as you can, whether if it's true sea moss or whether if it's the probiotic or whether if it's the prebiotic. It helps. It really does. But other than that, actually working out, if you can work out, please go to a gym. Go and if you haven't been to a gym before, or if you haven't really gotten into it and you're kind of scared and you don't really know what to do, don't be afraid to go ask for a personal trainer, or even you can come to me, you can write me into the chat and I'll give you my information. These little things can lead to overall health. It can lead to something better for you and longevity wise. I believe one of the things I told Dr. Gavin the other day on the phone was, we want to make sure that you guys can be around for next Thanksgiving and the next Thanksgiving and the next Thanksgiving. And that's part of all this is, right? It's just to make sure that people are aware of, if you have diabetes or if you don't, how to be prepared for it, or how to make sure that you don't get it, and do all the right things, and you'll be fine.
Let me ask you a question, then, Justin, my son. In terms of exercise, let's say that people are confined to a wheelchair because they may have had an amputation of a limb of their lower extremity. People that are a little older, my age, like that age, 74 and older, perhaps. People that live sedentary lives that don't do very much. What kind of exercise can they do? I know you mentioned 10,000 steps, right? Well, I can usually get up to 8,000, maybe 9,000 steps, but I'm not going to bust myself too much. I'm not saying the other word too much, though, to just go over the top of that. But basic exercise, those people that are confined to a wheelchair, people that are sedentary lifestyles, and then, of course, people that are active, that's kind of obvious. Just go ahead and breathe.
The basic exercises that you can do would be like sitting down and getting up, using a chair, if you can't sit down and get up. If you can't and you're more into a wheelchair and that's really about it, then you can get bands. You can work on your upper arms. You can work on, just the casual things of biceps and triceps and shoulders. I've seen, I hate to use the word excuses, because I've been to the gym for God knows how long, and I can tell you right now that I've seen people who basically have no limbs, no anything, and they're in a wheelchair and they go to the gym and they still do something. So there is no excuse. If you want to be healthy, you can get healthy. If you want to go ahead and do something, you can go do something. It's just a matter of the wherewithal to want to do it. I will say, I think Dr. Gavin said this, that, or it was in one of his slides, having family members or friends that are around that can push you is a great thing to have, because that means that you have a community. It means that you have a support system. What you don't want to have is someone who isn't supporting, someone who does the complete opposite of supporting, which is enabling, right? Which is like, oh, well, don't worry, man, you don't have to go to the gym. You still look fine. You good, da da da. So we got to cut that out, right? We got to get on to the other side and find people who are also on the mindset of trying to get better and look better and feel better and be better.
Okay, sounds good. Now I want to open it up to questions that people may have that are still with us.
While people are thinking of their questions, I would simply sort of want to emphasize that, two mantras that we want people to keep in mind during the holidays. One is less than you're doing now. And that has to do with the portion sizes that you've become used to eating, and the amounts of foods of each group that you have become accustomed to eating. Less than that. So just start with a simple assumption. And then with respect to the kind of thing Justin reminded you of, more than you're doing now. More physical movement. If you've been moving around this much, move this much, and do it in a way that's fun and sustainable and consistent. Those are good starting places.
And Doc, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Jerry.
I I guess my question, I heard Justin mention the benefits of sea moss, which is a natural ingredient I guess we have out on the islands in the Bahamas where I am. Uh, my question was about three other ingredients that I heard are very helpful for you to take early in the morning, every morning. And it was a, a mixture of a cup that has rosemary, cinnamon, and turmeric. And if you basically, they said if you take it every morning, it will not only help with other parts of your health, but it will help in a tremendous way you dealing with the carbohydrate situation and also the sugar situation. So I just wanted to know if there's any benefit in those three ingredients. And the other, I guess, sort of natural ingredient that I've been trying in the morning that I heard about was a teaspoonful of baking soda with some warm water every morning at like about 6 a.m. And that's basically to clean out just about everything from the day before and get your body ready for the next day. Of course, that's all hearsay, and you look on the internet and all that. But I was just curious if maybe Dr. Morrison or even Justin, who was talking about CBOS, might have something on that. And if the scientist, Dr. James, who was so very good, if he might have some input on what might be some natural intakes that could help you accelerate how you deal with the diabetic situation.
Yeah, I'd like to have Dr. Morrison to answer your question. It was a little bit more complicated. First part was pretty easy.
Thank you. So rosemary does have benefits. You know, it does help with anti-inflammatory and antioxidant and stress reduction. My family's from Cat Island, so big ups to the Bahamas. As far as the turmeric is also an antioxidant effect on the body. We even spoke about, Justin and I had a conversation in West Palm Beach about alkaline water and lemon, and he had said in his presentation that he had lemon and he had water, and we were having a conversation even about the plastic bottles that the alkaline water is in. So when you have the turmeric and the rosemary, you know, is your water also alkaline? You know, do you have it in a glass container or a metal container that's appropriate versus a plastic, and then all that polyurethane is coming into your body? So this was what we're talking about when we even talked about the salt. We do healthy stuff, and then we want to be mindful of the stuff that we're not aware of. So if you do the rosemary and the turmeric, then making sure that your water is not in a bottle, but maybe in a glass, and making sure it's alkaline. And if that's what you're going to do as far as fasting in the morning and rest your organs, okay, fine. I mean, you can use hibiscus, you could use dandelion, you can use chamomile. It doesn't have to be rosemary. It could be peppermint. It could be any plant that you want to use. They all have the same aiding in digestive support, helping the immune system, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant effects. They all have the same effect. And then back to your baking soda. Um, our stomach is acidic, so baking soda tones down that acid. Sometimes the medications is used for heartburn and stuff like that. But I haven't found any research that would say it's a connection to diabetes or glucose management. What we've taught today is more instrumental and helpful to manage your blood glucose. And, we said the night before, cut off your eating 3 hours before going to bed. You're going to sleep, which is a fast. You're going to get up in the morning. You're going to check. You're going to eat at a set time. You're going to eat your portion. So those things that we said today will be more instrumental and helpful to managing your blood glucose. Because I wouldn't want to be on record saying, do the baking soda thing, and then everything else we said is not being applied. It has to be applied of what we said, because the research is there to support it, and the outcomes that have been already achieved. That's why we're able to tell you this works. And so we're available. You'll get our information through the email. We'll have more conversations, and we can talk more about it. But what's going to help the blood glucose management is what Justin was saying about getting the 10,000 steps or more, of keeping active, of taking your probiotics, taking your CMOS. Those are helpful. You have the bleach CMOS, which is a fake one, just like you have fake salmon. and you have the authentic sea moss. So, those are the type of things we're learning about. It's not new, but it's new to us. It's like chia powder. It's not new to the Indians and Mexicans use it forever, but it's new to us. So we're learning some things too as we do more research and learn more about our bodies and know about nutrition and science that we haven't been taught, So that's what I can say to that, Justin.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I do think that I can't remember exactly what it meant when I had a friend of mine that was talking about true CMOS once, regular CMOS that he was getting, and then he was having some really bad issues when he was taking it. And then when you kind of look into the reasoning of why, again, I can't really remember exactly the issues that he was having. I want to say it was like upset stomach and diarrhea, stuff like that. But I think it speaks to the volume of getting the real stuff. And sometimes, a lot of people want to cheap it out, I guess, and not get the real stuff. And if you can't, then you can go into regular foods like garlic, like I was just mentioning before, and just go into that area. One of the things that I did, even in front of you when I was at the event, was the virgin olive oil. Certain things like that, just a shot of virgin olive oil in the morning. Heck, you can get back when I used to compete, I would use it was kind of like an apple cider vinegar in the morning to go ahead and take a shot of that. And I'm talking organic, so it did not taste good at all. But it helps, especially with your gut health and especially with digestion. I really do think majority of what we've been talking about is, besides diabetes, is also trying to make sure that whatever food you're going to get, that you can burn it and you can get it out of your system, right? And a lot of the times, the thing that gets us the most is it's staying in our system. Now, when it stays in our system too much, then we get drained, we get tired, we get lethargic, we don't really want to go to the gym. We just want to sit in the couch and be a couch potato and watch Netflix or whatever it is, or go to sleep. So yeah, these are things that need to happen. And also, I do think that water is important, and the kind of water that you should have. Again, at the event that we had, we were talking to a lot of folks, and we were talking about different kinds of waters. I know my dad mentioned essential water, which is also good water because the pH is like 9 point something, whatever it is. But the
9.5.
problem is, oh, well, forgot the 5, 9.5. The problem though is that a lot of people like to resort to going to Costco and getting the $3 water bottles that, it's like $3 for like 36 of them, right? I get it. I'm one of them. I used to do that a lot. But then I started understanding that if you can get a filter, if you can get a glass and pour it in a glass, if you can get lemons or limes and put it into your water so that it can make it more alkaline in a sense, then, these are the best things for you. Just those little things can make a huge difference. You don't feel it when you're younger. It's not that much of a thing to people, but like when you do get older, I noticed when I got into my 30s, I started realizing that things are different. Like my joints hurt a little bit differently. My joints feel a little differently when I eat certain things or when I take certain things and so on and so forth. So these aren't just fibs that we're just making up. These are things that people have to really get into.
I have a question here that came through by Miss Finello Williams, Nella Williams. And it's really pointing here to Dr. Gavin's very good question. I get it all the time. The question is, if a person adjusts their food intake and physical activity, develop very good lifestyle management, can diabetes be reversed? Can diabetes be
Let me
reversed?
address that. Okay.
Just like I say it.
And let me just point out that we need to be a little careful, because one of the things that we have to do is to realize the difference between things that come from sources where there have been sort of anecdotal experiences and non-clinical trial-based experiences. There are a lot of things that there's some proof of, but we don't have the kind of proof that would allow us to give it to you as an evidence-based recommendation. So just keep in mind that there are some of those caveats that you have to keep in mind, because we don't always have that. Going forward in the future, we're going to probably schedule a session around probiotics, because there's a lot of very, very helpful information and things that we've learned about the importance of the microbiome in diseases like diabetes and a lot of other diseases, and things that you can do to improve the health of your microbiome. We probably will need to address that, and we'll need to have a full session around that to really complement some of the things that you've just heard from Justin and Demetrice. With respect to the reversal of diabetes, I'm going to give you a name that I'm going to ask you to write down, and it's a clinical trial. And the clinical trial is spelled, these are all capital letters, DIRECT, direct. The direct trial, which was done in the United Kingdom for the reversal of diabetes, and it shows you the basis, what you need to do, what kind of steps need to be taken, and what they showed was that by using regular, fairly high intensity exercise and significant calorie restriction, you could reverse diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And the definition of reversal means that you have to have a sustained A1C of less than 5.7%. So look up that trial for yourself. You don't need to take my word for it. Go on Google and look up the DIRECT trial, and you'll see, and they will make reference in that study of other studies that have been done to show what it takes to reverse diabetes. It is possible, but it is, in fact, a significant hill to climb. And the definition is rigorous. So that's the short answer to your question. So we talk more about improving it because we know how difficult it is. You get many of the same benefits when you improve your diabetes in terms of avoiding complications, postponing cardiovascular outcomes, as you would if you didn't have diabetes in the first place. So that's why we spend so much more time talking about ways to improve it than we do talking about reversing it, because that's a significant mountain.
And I just want to add to the restrictions of the diet. Being a dietitian for 25 years, I can tell you food is personal, food is cultural. When you tell people, even when I've seen patients who have weight loss surgery, that they have to modify their diet, that's such a struggle.
Yeah, food is so much baked into our culture. Changing culture is like changing religion. It's a difficult undertaking, and that's why we have to keep at it and show people how to do it incrementally and in a way that really fits comfortably with them.
So Dr. Gavin, I want to be crystal clear regarding, again, the question was, again, can diabetes be reversed? I heard what you said, but I want you to say it over again, because that's a very, very critical conversation, the comments. Can it be reversed?
Yes, you can reverse it. And I'm trying to tell you that in order to show you what it takes to reverse it, go to the evidence. Look for that trial, because what I'm going to tell you is that those are people that had to go on calorie restricted diets. They were on less than 800 calories a day. How many of us are going to be doing that for 3 to 6 months? And they had to have fairly high intensity exercise. These were supervised exercise programs. They were under the supervision of somebody like Justin, okay, for months, with the kind of intensity of exercise, and they fully reversed their diabetes. Okay.
Does it work also with type 1 diabetes?
No, absolutely not. Type 1 diabetes is a totally different creature. You have to find ways of replacing the damaged or lost beta cells for type 1 diabetes. There are clinical trials going on for that right now. Trials in Chicago that are going on with replacement of beta cells for type 1, but it's a totally different approach for reversal of type 1 diabetes than it is for type 2.
So what you're saying is that they're working on looking at the different studies, the different subjects, I guess you call them, and research to see if they can come up with a way to reverse type 1 diabetes.
And they've been working on this for the last 25 years. I've actually done work
haven't done it yet.
in this area, and it's very difficult because trying to find ways to replace the cells that make insulin in the body in a way that will protect them from immune destruction, which is what caused the loss of many of these cells in the first place, is a very difficult challenge. You don't want to try to cure a disease by giving a person another disease. And that's been the problem in type 1 diabetes. You give them replacement islet cells, but you also have to give them such high doses of immunosuppressive drugs that basically now you've given them immunosuppression. So you've just simply swapped diseases, and one is actually no better than the other. So that's why they're trying to do this in a way that avoids all of that, and that's an ongoing challenge.
Appreciate everybody. God bless you, and have a great Sunday.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Happy healthy holiday.